lights out.
Welcome, everyone, once again to a different episode of SleepTech Talk, the Sleep Podcast with your hosts and friends, Emerson Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Gerald George Mannikarote. Why is it different? Because we are getting together on the heels of Sleep 2024, the sleep conference, worldwide sleep conference. In fact, yeah, it's hosted here in the United States, but you have attendees all over the world. And before we get into the conversation, just want to give a huge shout out to the sponsors. We can't do this without you all. Thank you so much. Talking about you all, folks, we thank you so much for your support. Our podcast has been blowing, especially on YouTube. Thank you so much for all the views, for all the listens, the likes, the subscriptions. Please don't forget to share this with all your friends, all the sleep techs out there, sleep professionals, as well as the sleep friends and sleep curious. So let's talk about Sleep 2004. Gents, what do you think? I thought it was a huge conference this year.
Now a word from our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is a leading provider of sleep lab management services and home sleep apnea testing. MedBridge partners with hospitals, healthcare systems, and medical academic institutions to offer comprehensive, fully integrated services for sleep disorders.
It really was. I think one of the things that really stood out, and one of the meetings that Robert and I were able to sit in with the ASM is just the volume of people. To see sleep getting back to its largest day, I think it was back in Boston several years ago, where they had well over 5,000. Well, we were over 5,000 for this meeting. I don't know the exact number, but it was an extraordinary turnout. And it just tells us that, for those who think maybe sleep is faltering, it certainly isn't. We had a great turnout. The volume of people was extraordinary. The SRS meeting was busy. All the meetings that were involved around the sleep meeting were just jam-packed, and a lot of great content, a lot of great conversations. The exhibit hall was busy. Matter of fact, I even talked to other vendors who said that it was probably the busiest show they've ever had. So I think it was a success in a lot of different ways.
I agree. I heard somebody say, "We're back, baby," on the ASM board when we met with them, Emerson, and
Yeah.
that kind of excitement is amazing. Because with reimbursement cuts and changes in technology and things related to less in-lab testing and more home sleep apnea testing, there you could certainly paint a doom and gloom picture for the world of sleep medicine in some regards, but I don't think that's the case at all. And I hope that most of the attendees who participated in the conference this year, really left, with a renewed excitement about our field and the technological updates that are on the horizon that they were able to see, in the exhibitor hall. And for the first time ever, that at least as far as I can remember, and I think I've only missed maybe one sleep conference in the last 20 years. We saw even a pharmaceutical representative or company represented in the exhibit hall, Eli Lilly, that has never been there before. So just a picture and a painting of things to come.
I agree. It was interesting to see the volume of people there, and like you said, this was you're right. It was reminiscent of the earlier days, like in Boston and such, when we had such a huge number of people, a huge turnout. It was great to bump into friends all over with the volume of people there, and it made for a very, very lively conference. At the same time, you said the new vendors, Eli Lilly, for example, any products or services that you saw that really stood out for you all during this conference?
Yeah, so I think one thing that seemed to really have some buzz was type 2 testing. I think it's something that's sort of been on the sidelines for quite some time because the technology's just not been there. If somebody did that, it was an extraordinary step to try to hook somebody up with a full PSG and send him home. I think now we're at a place where that technology's leapt forward. And one of the seminars I was able to sit in on had Dr. Yagi from Yale and Dr. Cielo from CHOP in Philly talking about how they use type 2 testing for their patients. And it was just extraordinary to see how they were leveraging that technology to solve problems. And I think when we think of type 2 testing, we can feel a little intimidated that how could something be sent into the home like that? But when you think about the doors it can open to reach people that may not be able to get in to have a full test, have limitations, but especially like children, and the research Dr. Cielo was doing, they can't do the regular portable, type 3 testing on children. So being able to do that with special needs kids like they're doing at CHOP in Philly was just really exciting to hear. And then to see what they're doing with opioid sufferers with Dr. Yagi and Yale was also exciting. I mean, it's using technology to reach people that otherwise might be unreachable, and that was exciting to see.
Hey, so for the future of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and the sleep meetings going forward, if they ever really want to be all inclusive, the dental sleep conference should be at the same time. Just saying.
It used to be. They used to have that either a few days before or a few days
Yeah.
after, and you're right. There's so much overlap between the two. It'd be exciting to have that together again.
All right. Well, you spread the word, Emerson. I know you've got a lot of pull in that space. So
Yeah,
you know.
baby steps. Baby steps.
That's
Hey,
right.
but going back to type 2 testing, Robert, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wish we had it today. We've got it from a technology standpoint, but what I mean is a billing. Having the ability to bill for those tests on a regular basis, and really incorporating that into the arsenal of a sleep program. Imagine if we have maybe there's a certain patient criteria that would be specified for that level 2 test to be done, and for the sleep center and the physician to be able to get reimbursed for the services that they're doing in that with that particular technology. I would love to see more advocating for that. It's almost like with Inspire when it was first introduced, they were hyper focused on reimbursement. They brought in some of the best people in the industry to get their technology added to Medicare, and once they had it in with Medicare, then they were able to bring in the private payers as well. We need that for these advancements in sleep so that we can expand, not only the types of services that we offer, but also the services that we can bill patients.
I agree with you there. You think about 10 years ago, do you remember when the whole hype and hoopla, oh no, home sleep testing is coming, and how much resistance there was in the market towards that? And yet now we cannot conceive of a sleep program without home sleep testing. And I see this as just the next level of that, where you're able to reach, just like Emerson said, more people with this. And Robert, I agree with you. Maybe there needs to be some criteria in which we can develop and then push towards the payers and say, hey, let's get these people diagnosed and let's get them on the pathway of treatment. And in the long run, you end up saving a whole lot more money because you're treating their sleep disorders.
I was actually able to listen in on a research project that is being done and listen to a patient survey. And if you want to hear about how our system is not working and how we need more tools that are in our hands in order to be able to properly diagnose the number of patients that there is a need for. This patient, it took him 7 months to get in for an in-lab sleep test, and then 4 weeks for him to get his CPAP device. Imagine your physician telling you he thinks that you have a serious medical condition, and it takes 7 months before you even can go in for your sleep test. I mean, it's just unreasonable, and we've got to do better.
And you make a really good point, because that's how home sleep testing became a thing, right? Because you just couldn't get all these patients taken care of. You had to wait for them to get into the lab, and then there's a backlog and there's a wait list, and even before you get them in the lab, there's a wait list just to get into the doctor's and to the physician's office. And so I agree with you there that it just opens it up so much more for the general public. Emerson, you look like you're thinking about something.
Me, that's a frightening thought. But
Yeah.
no, I think we're on the right track. It's type 2 testing is sort of the next level. It's us being able to take it to another level, and it reaches inpatients, it reaches outpatients, it reaches special needs. It opens up a whole wealth of opportunities for us to really test people in their environment. And I think one of the things that it's so easy to get away from, because sleep apnea dominates what we do, but there's over 80 sleeping and waking disorders
Right.
that the American Academy of Sleep Medicine's classified. I think there's 84 to be specific. And, we've got patients that have a lot of them. We have patients, particularly women. We talk about women on here a lot. I mean, they're going to have arousals. They're not going to have 4% DSATs. They're going to have, insomnia. I mean, there's so many things that we can talk about with that type of testing that changes things for us in the home environment. So yeah, it was exciting to hear about. I think that there's more to come, and I know that the Academy's looking at reimbursement and coding for it, and hopefully we'll hear some good news about that soon.
I think the first step was actually getting the conversation started at the conference. And I think this is where the conferences make a big deal, because it gets the exposure for these sort of things where people begin to have the conversations. What was it? Was it 13 years ago when PAP naps were a conversation? Remember that?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it made a difference.
It
It
did to make
certainly
it.
it created opportunity, because now it not only was a revenue stream for our colleagues, but it also gave a really nice pathway for, helping patients acclimate to CPAP, fine tune the pressure, do a lot of things that brought people forward with their adherence and compliance. So you're right. It made an impact.
Hey, a couple of other notes that I'm thinking about from an exhibitor standpoint. We saw companies that have been around the industry for a long time that have not necessarily participated in the ASM or the sleep conference as an exhibitor. Snap Diagnostics had a really large booth this year, and they introduced a new device into the marketplace. They received FDA approval for that device while we were at the conference. We also saw national, home medical equipment providers, now at the conference. So it just sort of screams that there is a lot of momentum and a lot of focus on this industry right now. I'm interested to see when we start seeing some of the withings and sleep number and some of the technologies that are out there that have this contactless, monitoring of patients. When we can monetize that, by the way, properly. I would love to see those technologies and where they're headed. To see like Sleep Number bring on Dr. Aloya as a medical director for them, that tells me that they have some insight or some foresight to really focus on sleep in a clinical way.
So talking about that sort of thing, before we started the recording, you talked a little bit about the consumable products. I mean, Sleep Number
Yeah.
comes under that category.
Yeah.
I don't know about the wee things, but you could still say it's a consumer product. What were your thoughts on that
Yeah,
from
it,
the
it was
consumer
better
side?
this year. Last year I was a little disappointed, that there was several different exhibitors who came and participated in the sleep conference, and all with nice consumer technology, but not really sleep companies. And it feels like we're sort of getting back to the real companies who are engaged in the battle to treat patients for sleep disorders. I'm hoping that's the case anyway, but I didn't see those companies, participating this year, which to me that was kind of nice. Also not selling hand creams and lotions and things that we saw previously in a few of the other sleep conferences. So it was all about sleep this year. It really was.
It's funny you talked about the hand creams and lotions. I totally forgot about that. That used to be a thing back in the day. I still remember one time I purchased a pair of insoles at one of these conferences.
So you
Uh,
are a sucker too, huh?
I
Yeah,
was a sucker
yeah.
too. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
buy a massage chair this year. They're still there, but I was able to resist the urge to have one shipped to the house.
I remember the insoles because I was on my feet the whole day for
Oh, that is
Oh, yeah.
true.
on the showroom floor. I was like, I'm willing to try this, and yes, I was a sucker. So
Yeah, for vendors, it's a solid 16-hour day for several days. So
It
talking
is.
about that, 16-hour days. You guys, I didn't put in as many hours as you did because you both were actually manning booths, and then you had breakfast
some good
dinners.
English.
Yes, hey, English not good, but you had so many different breakfast events. You had dinner events. You had happy hour events and other mixers that you attended. The three of us, we attended a few together as well. What were your thoughts on those? How did they pan out? Because there were so many of them this year.
Are you a sleep tech looking for new opportunities? Well, MedBridge Healthcare is one of the largest employers of sleep technologists, and they are growing. If you are a sleep technologist interested in a new position, potential paid relocation, or looking for a career advancement, consider a career with MedBridge Healthcare. Now back to the
That
show.
was really exciting to see. I know the couple that I was at and one that I helped host, it was full. I mean, everyone showed up, and that just tells you a lot about our community. When
Right?
people come to those things, they're looking to network, they're looking to have fun, and it just speaks to the community of sleep. And I think that's so important that we never diminish the importance of those sort of things. Yes, they're fun, and we're not really talking business or anything like that, but we're really, creating networks, we're creating friendships and trust. At the end of the day, when we think about, people making decisions, people buy from people they like, they know, and they trust. And those sort of events help to foster that. So it was exciting to see. I'd love to see more of them throughout the entire week rather than really consolidated on 1 or 2 days. But it was really fun to be a part of and to see such joy as people had fun.
Yeah, I looked at my schedule and I'm going, why is everybody having their event on Monday?
Yes. Yeah, 2 blues nights on Monday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was challenging to show up at both places,
Yeah.
one or multiple places, one after the other. I recall that Monday. I was not the happiest camper that day to try to make all of them. But I, one thing that I thought was a lot of fun, even though there was a lot of bouncing around, was the fact that we saw a lot of friends from the podcast. Many past guests were there.
Yeah.
To me, that was super cool. Shout out to the person of the year, Gregory. Finally got to meet him in person. You gents had the pleasure before, but for me, that was really cool to have that meeting.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
I'll have to say, I want to shout out to one of our friends, colleagues, past guest, Massey Arrington.
Yes.
Massey went toe to toe with one of the leading doctors in the world out of Wisconsin and went on AI. He had to take the con of AI, which, we know Massey, he loves to be the controversial guy, and he sold it. He did a fantastic job, talking about the challenges of AI in the future, not to diminish it and its importance and its place in healthcare, but I think he did a great job highlighting the things we need to think about. And so kudos to Massey. Well done. He represented sleep technology just impeccably, the AST board of directors equally. And I'm extremely proud of the job he did. Not only good to see him, but to see him stand up in a great forum like that and knock the ball out of the park was fantastic.
Agreed.
That's awesome, Emerson. I was going to go a little more lowbrow than that, and say that I really enjoyed the time that the three of us were able to spend together at a single reception, and it was funny because Emerson and Jerry and I, this is for the audience, we had the opportunity to meet the leadership folks and who are all part of Zoma, the positional therapy device. And uh, what's even more interesting is we had a few minutes with them where I'm pretty sure we helped to rewrite their marketing strategy for
I
for the
think
remainder
so.
of the year.
Well, I got to hear about the certainly part of our challenges at Philips as we basically created the market for them. But yeah, we had a fun time doing that. That was a pleasure.
So I was just about to say something. I totally lost my train of thought. It was because I was thinking about the three of us hanging out, and then we ended up moving to a couple other locations, and then one by one we kind of started shedding off.
Yeah. We never even said goodnight to each other. We just,
No,
hey, where's Emerson? Where's
yeah.
Derek? And gone.
Yeah, it was
Hey,
the
kudos
Cinderella
to
experience, the turned into a pumpkin
That's
kind of
right.
early.
Yes.
I got to give it to Robert for being able to to stay out even later than all of us. So kudos to you, man, on
Only
that
a
one.
little bit. Only a little bit.
Hey, I do recall now what I was going to say is actually going back to what Emerson talked about in terms of AI. There was obviously a whole lot more exposure to that this year. Wouldn't you gents agree with that?
I think so. I think what we're going to see over the coming years is how that begins to define itself. There
Right?
are different schools of thought. And, while we all get excited about endotypes and phenotypes, there are people who are very much against it. And these are academic minds that are thinking about it very seriously. You've got guys that feel like they've proven it and have got great data to stand by it. So I think something to watch for over the next year or two, particularly, is how this begins to take shape. What is this going to mean? Because the tools to be able to type patients are there. The question is, what is that really going to mean? And then even further, once we have that data and we're able to look at loop gain or anything like that, how does that inform the doctor? And I think those are debates that we're going to be able to enjoy in the coming months and years, as this technology really helps us really categorize patients in a way that we can treat the patient with the right kind of therapy at the right time. And that's going to be a lot to look forward to.
I
Robert,
agree.
your thoughts?
I'm hoping that I'm hoping that AI will tie all of the pieces together. And I mean diagnosis. Not just the endotyping, phenotyping to model the plan of care for a patient, but I mean just all of the data elements for patient populations and sort of aggregating that. So now we've got our sort of healthcare economics to justify the need to do more and have more focus on the outcomes of sleep. We talk about outcomes, but in general, in trying to pull that data can be super difficult. Especially on I'm a part of different conversations with payers right now where I think we can get them to sort of high level agree that a patient is a lower cost of care to the payer, but ultimately we've got to prove out the concept and make sure that that's right. Now, the nice thing is that for some patients who have been on CPAP therapy for X number of years, you can go back in retrospect and pull data for those patients, and then even beyond that, and pull the data in from prior to diagnosis and prior to treatment. But then you take the comorbids that are also associated with those patients, and now what did we spend on those patients prior to treatment, and then post, you know, what's the long term effect for that patient, and what does it look like from a healthcare spend standpoint? So that's what I'm hoping the AI does. It starts to pull all of the data components together and tell the story that we have not really successfully as an industry been able to tell. We get snippets of it, I think, in pockets, but in Emerson, I think it was one of the shows recently. You may have mentioned the AHRQ report that came out.
Yeah.
I mean, we have work to do as it relates to data and telling the real story around sleep and its impact on overall health.
Well, you're right. The monster question is longitudinal. Where
Yes.
the decisions we make today, what are the consequences of that 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? And we don't know. And I think that's the tough question of AI is, are those predictive algorithms and analytics, going to be the right ones? We don't really know the answer to that if we choose to put somebody on one therapy, what that looks like 10 years from now. We don't have that insight yet, and we're going to get there. There's no question about it. And I think that's some of the misgivings that some people have about AI is, if I make this decision now proactively, what is that really going to mean for the patient? in the long run. And we'll get there. It's going to take time, but that's the fun part of debate. And that's the check and balance that we have in healthcare, is that no one's going to run to the finish line too quickly. There's a lot of people that stand in between that person and their goal. But we have a lot to look forward to. I think the coming years are going to be fun when it comes to AI.
And there
I
is some
agree.
fine balance in there. Sorry, Jerry. There's
Right. No,
some
go
fine
ahead.
balance in there. The ones who are adamantly opposed to the technology are too far one way, and the ones who say, let's go all AI. I mean,
Yeah,
that's too far the other way. So you're exactly right, Emerson. There is a happy medium, and we just have to learn how to use the tool.
exactly.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I think that's where it's going to be really exciting to be able to see the, like you said, Robert, the outcomes ultimately. And when we look at healthcare economics, at a macro level, how much is this going to impact? And it's these kind of tools like AI and such that's going to be able to connect the dots even better than before. I think, Robert, you were the one who said it, that everything is kind of in pockets right now. How do you bring it all together? And that's become a big issue today. And yeah, on the surface level, 50,000 foot level, people are talking about it. Yes, this all makes sense and let's do it. But at the field level, are we actually doing it? And this is definitely a tool that's going to help us get there. Anything else, gents, that you found interesting?
I think that just to as we begin to wrap it up, I think that what Sleep 2024 told us is that there's a great future in front of us when it comes to sleep medicine. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of great conversation. The academic minds are engaged, but also the everyday doctor is there, and that voice is getting stronger. And I think that's incredible. A mutual friend of ours, Dr. Kosla, represents that. Doctors like her are getting louder, and I think that's fantastic, because they represent that physician that's treating patients every day, not just not doing research and talking to the community. Her feet are on the ground, and more doctors like that are getting louder, and their voices are being heard. And I think that's going to help us shape a future where technology has a place, has a fit, and is practically applied to patient care.
Well said. And I think that's a great place to stop. Well, folks, thank you all so much for joining us. Shout out once again to our sponsors, and we look forward till next time. Until then, keep showing us the love. We sincerely appreciate it. Like, subscribe, most importantly, share with every one of your friends. And until next time, we say thank you, cheers, and lights on.
Before we go, we would like to thank our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is developing innovative inpatient, post-discharge, and population health programs to screen comorbid conditions, diagnose and treat sleep disorders. Learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com. Once again, you can learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com.